Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome indeed to the future of indie TV with Duplass Brothers Productions. Like Austin said, this feels like a 10 years later moment, so with no further ado, I'm going to introduce all the guests. Introducing first, Mel Eslin, president of Duplass Brothers Productions and showrunner, director, and co-writer of Penelope.
Hi.
Courtney Barroso and Natalie Palamides, stars and creators of The Broadcast. Barrett O'Brien, star, director, and writer of The Long, Long Night. And last but far from least, the Emmy and Golden Globe nominated actor, producer, director, and general all-round indie TV and film utility pinch hitter, Mark Duplass.
Hi.
So Mark, I'm going to start this with kind of what feels like an obvious question. What is indie TV?
I don't know yet. We're trying to figure it out. So I think that this idea got started, Mel and I have produced a show along with my brother Jay called Animals for HBO, where, we sort of animated a few episodes in an apartment. It could be done cheaply. It made sense to be done cheaply. And that was about 9 years ago, and we felt like, this is really cool. And we brought it to the buyers, and HBO ended up ordering 2 seasons of the show for us. And we're like, this is incredible. We've cracked a new model. We then made a show called Room 104 for HBO that was designed in a way that it could be made cheaply. It's just different stories in a hotel room every night, And that was at a time in the business where I think the big streamers, everybody, they felt like, this show is cheap. It's not going to be our next Game of Thrones, but it's added value. It might get some good reviews. Maybe it'll win a couple of awards. This is worth it. And that's over. It sucks, but...
The Calvary isn't coming.
Yes, it's over. I mean, it's really... And Mel and I, over the last few years, as the industry has changed, as we're starting to see sort of the busts of the boom of peak TV, right? For those of you who are around this, you're noticing, it's like the pitches that we used to be able to bring out and sell right away, they're saying no. And Mel and I are like, do they not like us anymore? I feel really insecure. This sucks. And then we started talking to our friends, and they're like, yeah, they're not buying anything that's not huge IP, trying to hang on to their hemorrhaging subscribers as everybody
cuts it. It's not you, it's them.
Yes. So we're like, well, shit. Now what do we do? And look, independent film has been around for years. It came to festivals like South by Southwest and Sundance in the early '90s. There was no ecosystem at the time. People would just make these movies because they weren't being made in the system. Some of them sold to the big companies, but there were a lot of beautiful films around. Unique voices, underrepresented stories. And what happened is an entire ecosystem sprung up around them. Distributors like IFC and Magnolia said, we're just going to go into business and put these movies out. And it worked. So we're sort of diving in a little ahead of the curve here with the hope that we're going to make these things, because even if we try and sell these as pitches, the studios are so fear-based right now, there's not a chance that the correct artistic vision is going to make it through that gauntlet anyway. So we might as well just double down and not make a pilot. Let's make a whole season of television so it's ready to go. And maybe we get lucky, and maybe one of the big streamers comes along and they want to put it up on their service. That sounds awesome. But maybe not, and maybe something new and alternative will spring up in its absence. And we don't exactly know what that is just yet, but we felt like this sort of thing that we call the special middle of storytelling, the things that Phoebe Waller-Bridge was doing, that turned out to be big shows. Those shows are going to die unless we kind of collectively come together and make sure they don't.
And you talked about the infrastructure and how IFC and Magnolia and Dark Sky and all these other companies came along and said, well, okay, we're going to put this stuff out. At the same time, we need the audience and we need the outlets. Now, I'm going to be a bit of a downer here. My T-shirt is actually a little bit of an Easter egg for today. This is from the Austin online studio Rooster Teeth, which has been going for 20 years. It was doing video literally before YouTube. It had a big subscriber base. They were incredibly loyal. And last week, they announced they were going out of business because they couldn't make the money work and had been hemorrhaging cash for 10 years. And they said, like, the old model of ads and a few subscribers just isn't going to do it anymore. And so, yeah, getting it off to a good, bright start. What's the infrastructure?
Anyway, good night, everybody.
But
congratulations.
How do you, when you look at it now, how do you look at the same kind of opportunities that IFC and those kind of companies saw and the burgeoning festival scene? What do you see as the possibilities for starting to build this infrastructure that you need? Yeah,
I mean, I don't want to get too into the weeds and like bore if people are not into this, but quickly, you know, absolutely validate everything you're saying. Super concerned, and that's a reason why a lot of this middle is going away, you know. But here's the really fun part about independent TV. When you make an independent film, you come here and you're like, I got one shot at this. I bring it to the festival, I hope they buy it, and then it's over, right? Because it's just a one-off thing. TV has the opportunity for future seasons. They have this opportunity that we see now where shows that were not popular, like Suits, all of a sudden go on Netflix and then become like the #1 show 7 years after it aired. And the Suits are aware of this potential value of these packages. So the more episodes you make, you get yourself towards an indomitable package that could one day be very valuable, outsourced to different people. And so the way you do that is, you know, we make a group of very disparate shows up here. You know, some of them are really premium shows that can really, you know, air, you know, on the Netflix and the HBOs, and some are smaller documentaries and things like that. But the way to do it, in my opinion, is in the absence of the big, wonderful sale, it's, well, maybe you don't buy my worldwide rights for perpetuity. Maybe we just put it on your channel for a year license, and I lose a little bit of money up front. But there's a fee here to relicense in the event of success. And then if there's enough of that there, and then you start to drag them into the boat for the second season, then all of a sudden, like poker, they become pot committed because they start to see, holy shit, we've got 24 episodes here that's really licensable to all these other streamers that are going to be popping up, to the fast TV channels that are popping up that, while yes, ad dollars are not what they once were, they're there, you know? So I think that for us, the way we're looking at this is like, it's less about the big smash sale that used to happen at South by Southwest or Sundance in the 1990s, but slowly building something and having that ownership of it, and most importantly, to get the fucking thing made when it's just not going to get made, and have your creative control.
So Mel, where do you, in the pilots that we got, in the shows we got coming here tonight, where does Duplass Brothers Productions fit into this? What are you doing for these shows? Like, how early are you getting involved? Is it at the idea stage, or are people coming in saying, like, we need some cash? Or are you going, like, okay, we can be the facilitators to get this in front of audiences?
I mean, it's a bit of a mix, but I feel like all of these shows up here were ones where, I mean, because I think you even reached out to Nat and Coco.
We came in at the idea stage. Mark reached out to me on Twitter, and we just went. He said, if you can think of an idea with 1 to 2 actors in one location, I'll make it. And so we came up with our...
We don't offer that all the time.
But have you seen her one-person show, Nate? That's on Amazon. It's incredible.
Yeah,
there.
Yeah.
He's on!
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, check out my Netflix special.
But I think that's kind of what Mark and I love to do, is we find people and voices and artists, and we go to them and say, like, if we give you a couple things, what can you do with that? And really special, creative, talented people, like everybody up here, can take, like, the tiny little bit of, like, here's a camera and here's some money and here's one room, and they'll make something out of it. And I think we saw that in everybody up here. And then also Mark and I take a lot of chances ourselves, both as directors. I mean, 2 of the pilots were playing. Mark directed one, I directed the other. And a lot of that, too, is, like, we're willing to take the gamble ourselves and take that weight. And also, we work for free. Yeah. So there's that.
So, I mean, Barrett, talk about how you came involved with this, and I've seen The Long Long Night, and it's rather wonderful. You two have great chemistry together. But talk about your experience of going through this process of trying to put together an independent TV project.
Thank you for the question, and I just thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's just such an honor to be in a room with this many creative people. And I realize by even speaking for a second when I have the Yodas of this information is a privilege, so I'll be quick. But the one advantage I do have is that I know what it's like from the inside when you are able to work inside this structure of producers who are hiring you to be who you are. And what it worked for me is that Mel and Mark especially over a lot of decades has watched my plays. I'm a playwright, and I've done small black box theater plays all over the country. And what I've noticed about this structure with Duplass Brothers Productions, they're looking for artists who are going to do it anyway. They're looking for artists who are not waiting for someone to tell them they can. They're like with Natalie and Courtney, they're going to do it anyway. Can we give them a little extra than they're used to and maybe boost up their storytelling exposure? So that's how it came from them seeing my plays. And to Mel's word, like, we're just going to give this little bit extra, and we're going to hold you to that extra. Let's keep it containable so that you don't feel the onus to have to create something that makes millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars, that you can stay inside your comfort zone, a little bit on the edge of it. And if it balloons a little bigger than your past running experience, you're a success. So that's felt thrilling to be inside of.
And one of the things I find fascinating about something that's changed in TV, and I think people forget how recently it changed, was that you go back 20 years and your show is 22 minutes or it's 44 minutes. In the same way that everybody was cutting their film on the festival circuit to 90 minutes because they wanted to sell it for a 2-hour TV slot. And I think it's Always Sunny in Philadelphia was the first show that broke and it went like, we can't get the episode down below 26 minutes. And FX went, oh, okay, we'll give you 5 minutes overrun. That'll be fine. And I was
nobody's buying ads for this anyway. Don't worry about it.
No. But I was wondering about that. Like,
and then they did.
Now there's, the format has changed, the mediums have changed. There is this liberty that has said you don't have to stick to, what was burrowed into everybody in TV, which is you have to hit this time. And the time is more than anything else. That's the most important thing about this run and about what you can cram into this show. And there's something about the liberty you've got within this sub-half-hour format.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely feel the freedom of that. But what's interesting and fun on the independent side of things is, as we're designing each project, some of them have the ability to potentially become something that could air on network TV. Like one of our more premium shows, Penelope, is a YA show about a young girl who just absconds to the woods to try and live a life that's closer to the eternal elements that we've lost since our phones, dominate our worlds. And that, for lack of a better term, is like a clean show that, yes, that can play HBO or Netflix, but that could actually play on like CBS or something. So we're mindful of like, all right, let's make sure they're not too long in case we have to cut it down and air it, but we can also have the longer run time. And that just sort of speaks to your question of like the flexibility of this. It's really, really fun to try and design something that can end up in multiple different formats and different ways, and that's one of the benefits of what TV is right now in general.
And I gotta say, I love the broadcast, but I don't see it on CBS
I do.
7 o'clock.
CBS cut. Yeah,
It's
needs cut a little differently. It'll be fine.
It's
blurs a couple things out. There's not too much nudity.
Just a tasteful dash.
Yeah, in like the 3rd episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put it on Peacock.
Yeah.
But I mean, for me, it had kind of that early Adult Swim, wild experimental energy to it, which I thought was wonderful, and I had a great time with it. I was thinking about that. I mean, this seems to, like, out of all of them, this is the one that seems the wildest, the most experimental in some ways. And I was wondering about working with them and you being able to being in an environment where you can go like, okay, it's the two of us in a white room with being attacked by a bird at one point. It's got that great anarchic form that there don't seem to be many outlets for other than somewhere like this where you can go like, let's really go for it.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of saw Mark's offer as a creative obstruction, and we were like just goofing off one day at our friend's birthday party, like being scientists, and he was like, you guys should pitch that to Mark, like these scientist characters. And then that night we went home and came up with a log line or treatment, or I think Courtney has a really good elevator pitch for it.
For the
show.
log line, you mean?
Well, yeah, I mean, we pitched it as 1984 meets Three Stooges.
Meets Eraserhead.
Yeah.
But those were just kind of visual elements that we were thinking about when we wrote it, but we just wrote it so fast and didn't really know necessarily where it was going, but it ended up coming together.
Yeah. I think it's really
I think
good.
you're selling yourself short, honestly. Like, when I saw Nat's show first, and I was just so bowled over. Like, they both come from sort of this really alt comedy, bizarre clown theater world, and they're just constantly putting on black box shows that are insane. And I was like, if there's a way to bottle this, this Looney Tunes Broad City thing that's happening here, it could be incredible. But I was like very skeptical of like, how's this going to happen? And literally about 4 days after I had that conversation with Natalie, it was like, here's the treatment, here's how it could work.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
It was fast. Yeah. And then I was like, let's go do it. Let's make 6 episodes. We'll rent you a sound stage. We'll get you a small crew. Like, and how you wrote all 6 episodes. I turned my office over to you at some point.
Yeah.
It's never looked the same.
You forgot to tell me, though.
Yeah.
I walked into a whole new world.
Yeah.
You walked into me like wearing a bathing suit one day, I think, because it was like really sweaty, like hot
attic.
up in the attic.
I was
yeah.
like, did we
But
leave the door
I forgot
open
I was in
and
an
strays
office.
came
Sorry?
in? Nothing.
But didn't you? I think you. I mean, you know, when you talk about the normal length of like the TV process, you sell the pitch. Then it takes 3 months
forever.
to make the deal. Then they make the deal. Then you write the episode. Then they take you another 2 months to give you collective feedback. Then maybe, if you're lucky, you get a second draft. Then maybe after about a year, they let you make the pilot. And then 6 months after that, they cancel you and you're toast. And you've wasted 2 years.
Yeah.
I think by the time
It's
we were done
excruciating.
shooting all episodes, it was like 6 months from our first meeting, and you were done.
Yeah, it was. And changed us forever. No, but I mean, I really love the show. We really wanted to do something together. Like, yeah, Courtney and I are both clowns and physical comedians, and so we do a lot of like duo bits together, and we wanted our show to be something that allowed for us to be like really silly and stupid and physical. And we also like love acting, so there's like a lot of really emotional
We're obsessed
moments.
with acting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we kind of like created this world that allowed us to play in the way that we knew that we can. Just a completely absurd world where anything could happen, and then we felt really free to write in all the things that we know we like to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and I think as amazing as they are, Mark and I knew it's very rare when you have such talent, but they're allowed to, the first time out, go and write and direct and star.
Yeah.
And, you know, for us, we saw it and we kind of turned it over and we said, you get a little bit less money, but go
Yeah,
make this
I
thing
mean,
and we trust you, you know?
You got to give it up to these guys for letting us cut our teeth like as first-time film directors and just like letting us like take the wheel and make like a really fucking weird show and fuck shit up and like just letting us roll around with I don't know however much money it costs, but you know.
I mean, for all the
expensive as-
buyers out there, it was a $30 million show.
Yeah.
So we're going to need to recoup that pretty quickly. But, you know, a quick 1-year license should do it. You know, I think that's fine. Yeah.
I said yesterday I don't care about money. I was trying to be like a fun, like whimsical artist and be like, I don't care about money. But then, you know, you quickly realize it's like, well, you didn't throw down for this weird project, girl. So, so yeah, no, I redact that.
Yeah. But I think, but to
care.
your point, like
care.
legitimately, like we made this thing at a price that is responsible enough. So like, even if we go, you know, completely bonkers with our method and go behind a paywall or go direct distribution, like we're still going to be able to, with your existing fans and our existing fans, like make the money back and live to fight another day. You know, so
Yeah.
that's how we're like a little bit careful, even though we're being risky.
Yeah.
But then there's, you know, tremendous upside and success, and like I think you guys knocked it out of the park. So.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, doggy.
Yeah, bro.
And I just want to say, like, that's what I was super grateful for, is like just being like given this like absolute trust from these guys and trusting us as artists to make, whatever we're inspired to do to like bring laughs to the people and to us. And I'm trying to be a whimsical artist again, but I have this reminder on my head that I'm an idiot. So just for anybody.
This is an inside joke from our show you haven't seen.
Yeah.
You can all see why we gave him a show, I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just really frustrating in the industry. You like develop these shows and create these pitches, and we've had other shows we tried to develop and make together, and it just gets pissed on over and over again by these stupid executives who like have no experience in comedy. I mean, I think everybody sees it with SNL, like it fucking sucks, and it's because they piss all over their artists and they don't let them like be comedians anymore on that show. Like everybody's scared to fuck up their lines. They're like reading the fucking cue cards the whole time because they're like, Lorne Michaels might shoot me, if I fuck up a line. And it's like, well, that's not how Chris Farley like came to be and all the comedians that you love.
I was gonna save this as a surprise, but we do have Lorne Michaels back here. He's very interested in the show.
I would love to host.
Yeah.
But no, that all that saying, like I really respect him and like what he did, like, for comedy, and like when he started though, he was making like a really scrappy show the way that we were, and he like believed in it, and then he like got famous and made a bunch of money, and that's just what happens, It's just what happens.
I was
The industry gets to you. Yeah.
word that Natalie and Courtney used and Barrett used, and that's the black box, that they come from a live background, and Ryley Walker got somebody from a musical background. I was wondering about that because 3 of the 4 shows you're going to be showing tonight, they're people who don't come from a TV background, and I found that really interesting. That when you were looking at assembling tonight, it's people who come from didn't go through film school or TV school or have background in TV. They're coming from a totally new perspective from a creative and technical point of view.
Yes, I would like to say that is by design, but that is the first time that was brought to my attention. So, thank you for making me look innovative and smart and cool. I want to say maybe there was something intuitive there. I mean, you brought up, one of our shows is a show called Ryley Walker and Friends. It's a docu-series. It's a follow doc. I would say tonally it's along the lines of like How To with John Wilson or Painting with John. And it's about a musician in his early 30s who is getting to that point where it's like, all right, I'm driving around in a van full of dude farts, and what is this all about? And so each episode is just him sitting with a different musician. Maybe they make a song, maybe they talk about why this industry that they love so much is also destroying them. And it's very simple and basic, but I think that to your point of like why we might have brought in, musicians, a playwright, people from theater. I come from a musician background, and that's where my entire creative ethic was born, which was like, you want to make a record? You buy an 8-track, you record it, you press 1,000 CDs, you buy a van, you go out and you sell them yourselves. It was just this DIY mentality. And to this, while we're here sort of trumpeting indie TV, I also want to just give it a little dose of realism that like, we're not up here just saying like, Barrett and Natalie and Courtney, we've saved you and here's the dump truck of money. It is such a two-way street, and I really do believe we are getting more than we are giving to them because we are asking so much of them by giving them our support, our resources, a little bit of cash, but they're basically working for free, and they're going to have huge upside when this thing sells. But there's a chance that it won't. So you need that risk, and people who come from within the traditional industry are often either indoctrinated or ingrained to a certain way of working that it's hard for them to click off of that track. But finding an artist who's brand new to this, who can come in and look at it with that sort of almost caveman approach of how do I put this together. That's how my brother and I made our early movies. I never had budgeting software. I never had scheduling software. I would just write things down I would print out the Google Calendar and like write in what the shoot schedule was on there. And I think that ignorance with which I approached things was quite helpful because I would have been really daunted otherwise. So the way that these guys just scrap it together with, you know, sometimes not even knowing those rules that can be constrictive is really beneficial.
And luckily for you, Barrett, you've got the big money world of independent theatre to fall back on.
Actually, my day job is a very lucrative teaching children storytelling, which if you don't know, is one of the quickest ways to big success. But I was actually thinking about that in finances, but because one of the things I tell these young artists, and I've taught these workshops all over the country and all sorts of different types of education worlds, is that you should just make stuff, you know. And there's always sometimes a little part of my brain that it's hard to say that because is that a viable thing to tell a young person? Should you make stuff? Is it going to break your heart actually to invest yourself completely in this? So I realize that as an educator, I have to be doing that too, and I have to be putting myself out there and showing these young artists that like I'm making stuff. I'm just making stuff, and I'm making stuff in a way that's it's not going to sink me if it doesn't work, and it is going to lift me if it does, right? And so to be able to demonstrate that in my day job means a lot. And I just want to also balance out. So my road to production with this was almost the opposite. So I pitched my idea to Duplass Brothers Productions almost 5.5 years ago. And it's the story of Long, Long Night is two men who locked themselves in a hotel room with the intention to kill themselves to help overpopulation on the planet. Right? So I pitched this.
It's a comedy.
And it's a comedy. The pitch didn't go well, right? So, and then I waited 3 years, and then they came back, are you still interested in the idea? And now the show's been in production, and we've been finalizing it and molding it for almost 2.5 years. So it's a much more glacially paced show to production. So it's interesting to know that the two things can live within the same paradigm. And the reason I add that on is because then I can continue working with kids and I can bring them into the process and be like, here, I'm doing this too. This is my strange little show, you know, and show them the parts that aren't the guys killing themselves.
Look at this scene. Look at him in the tub. Watch him squiggle.
Yeah.
Which raises the question, like, how much did yours change over time? If it was that kind of, I mean, you guys, basically like, Mark goes, go crazy, have this idea, and you're kind of, you have that time to look at it and go, what do I need to do? Like, gives you time to learn more about the actual mechanics of doing TV, I'm guessing, in a lot of ways as well. So it was something about the evolution of your project over that 5.5 years of Mark going like, here's some more notes.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, for me, that's a big question I have. I mean, I'm kept awake at night with the climate crisis, and I do feel that. Like, would it be better to just disappear? And I think that's maybe something Penelope's feeling too. You know, so, but the process of going to and following out that image in imagination has lifted me up so much and given me so much hope. So the process has worked on me as much as I've worked on the process, and that came from the duration of being inside this thing so long and being with someone, I really admire and care about, and being really honest as dads and as artists, and letting the work tell us what it wants to be. But for me, it's taken time to let that conversation happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's not dissimilar to like those creep movies that I made early on with my friend Patrick, who, we would just, we would just start shooting, with an idea, with an impulse that felt true to us, and we'd make a lot of messes, and that was kind of part of the process. Barrett and I are both in The Long, Long Night together, and we're old friends. And we were chasing this thing, and we were like trying to find the right tone, and then we would put some stuff together, and then we would edit and go, oh, no, let's reshoot this thing, So in some ways, the making of the show, and the crafting of it, because it was cheap to make, because we kept it in a place where, not like the traditional independent film financing where it's like, you got 15 days and then you run out of money. It was like, well, we were only 5 people making this thing, so it wasn't expensive to get more days to shoot more. And that allowed us the freedom to let the show reveal itself to us, which was really nice in this case.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but that's something Mark and I do quite often, is we love getting into the edit and then figuring out how to fix things maybe isn't the right word, but we do a lot of testing with friends and smart filmmakers, and they give us their thoughts, and then we go back and we get to try new things or do a Band-Aid or hit something we didn't because we were on such a crazy schedule. And I think that's something that I always tell filmmakers when they ask for advice is I'm like, be ready and be open to that stuff. And it's really exciting what you can do and how you can change things with just a little. And we don't have those options as much when we're at like a, I love HBO, but when we're there, we don't have the time to kind of go in and
you
fix
run into
those
the edge of
things.
your budget or your schedule or something like that. So, I mean, the original Creep movies, I don't know if any of you own the DVD or have seen some of the extras, but it started out as just an awkward friendship movie, and the guys hug and become friends on the bench.
It was
at
not
the
a
end.
horror movie.
It was not a horror movie, and I don't even like horror movies. And everybody was like, we showed it to people, and they were like, "Your movie is begging
It's
you
creepy.
to go in this direction." And I was like, "I don't want to do it," and they were like, "We don't give a shit. Follow your movie." And we were like, "All right." And then we eventually kind of figured it out, and there's something really nice about that process. I guess I'm just sort of, it's revealed to me over and over again that, this is not an empirical process. If that was the case, every project you made would become successively better than the last. You have to get lucky. There has to be magic. You have to be paying attention to the things that happen on the ground. So there's something to this whole lower budget nature of not only film, but in this case, TV, that allows those reshoot or rewrite or new scene additions to be more feasible.
Yeah, the budget thing's interesting for me because one filmmaker I talked to said that there's basically a sliding scale. On one end, there's creative liberty, and the other end, there's the ability to actually get it done. Yeah. And the more money you have, you can get it done, but what you're allowed to do actually gets less and less because you can't take those wild swings because there's too much money involved.
Yeah, I think that has been the case for a long time, and I think now we're in the place where, well, there might just not be that much money anyway, because people are just really afraid. I'm not sure how many of you are feeling this out there or feeling the industry. The people with money are just afraid. There are fewer things being sold, and with that contraction just comes, as you all know, homogenization of the art. They're just going to try and make what made money last year, And so for us, I think that one of the things that's exciting about this TV model, and again, I don't want to get too in the weeds, but I can see a lot of you nodding on the specifics. I feel like there are a lot of filmmakers out here. So one thing I encourage in independent television, which is exciting, is that let's say you do make something independently and you get lucky and Netflix buys your worldwide rights in perpetuity. That's great, right? If you don't perform in that first season, you're canceled and you're toast. So let's take the other road, okay? God damn it, Netflix didn't buy my worldwide rights. I actually lost half of my money, and I was only able to sell a domestic license to Peacock, bummer. And now I have to go and spend all my time selling off the worldwide territories one by one to try and make my money back. Here's the benefit to that. You're now the studio that has licensed it to 10 different areas. So there's no one overlord telling you whether season 2 comes or not. Maybe you perform well in 7 territories and not in 3. Great. So those 3 cancel you in their territory, but you still got these other 7 where you're working. You can just go resell to a different company because you're the boss in there. So there's actually a real nice power benefit to being the person in there if you've either designed an idea so intelligently that you're able to pay for it yourself because it's found footage, it's video diary or something like that, or you've gotten private equity where they're just passive and you're in control of the boat.
And that also creates the interesting opportunity that if you're doing well somewhere that may be a non-American market, you can go like, okay, well, I never thought I was going to be big in Estonia, but suddenly I am. It's Jim Cummings and Thunder Road. Jim suddenly found he was hugely successful in France, and he roadshowed his next 2 films in France. And
that's awesome.
He made.
You want to be big in France, yo?
Yeah.
I think we could be big in Estonia.
I think that.
But Jim made like 10. It was something silly, like 10 times the budget back because he was like, France is where that people are responding to this film, so that's where we go. And to a certain degree, it gives you. It's another part of that equation of like how much time do you want to commit to this project versus moving on to the next project. So it does kind of put you into this environment of yes, you're the creator, but you're also the business manager. And that's something that I was wondering for you, Mel. That you're, not only do you direct Penelope, you are the president of the company. I was wondering about that, the balance for you of like how you're navigating the space, because you've got two different responsibilities. They're very different hats.
Welcome to Mark and Mel therapy. We talk about it all the time.
Now we have to do it in front of
It's the
people.
number one conversation.
Oh, did I just open a can of worms?
No,
I'm sorry.
it's good.
We're both built the same way, which is we never want to stop, and we want to make, and then we always have to catch ourselves. And we've gotten good at it, where one of us will look at the other.
We've gotten better at it.
Okay,
Not good
better.
at it.
Sorry, we've gotten better at it. At least we have each other to look and go, dude, like slow your roll. Like we're good. Let's take a break. But it's so hard. I think Penelope was such a specific show for us because we really took a gamble. It was like the most money we've ever spent of our own money. We wanted to try a bit more of the self-financed premium TV show. It was a very special project. Mark and I co-created it. And so at Day's End, we were like, one of us has to just take the lead on this and direct, because we can't ask somebody else to do this. And being a female voice, I kind of took that lead and then show ran and directed all the episodes.
You can't even say it without sighing. It almost killed her.
It was a lot. Listen, I had an amazing team at Duplass, and Mark, picked up slack on some things, and I just killed myself, and that's how I did it. But I don't know, if you're smart about what you're doing and you bring in the right people, you love what you're doing and you love who you're working with, and you make it work. But it was like, Mark and I had made a feature film called Biosphere, and that was like my test ground for like, how do I do the thing I love the most, which is write and direct while running a company that is a very small company, but massive in our output. And I think just navigating that of like, turn off my brain on running the company during this period of time to be a director, and now switch roles and focus on everything else. But also why like we've gotten really good at finding our collaborators who like all of three of you are like, we'll hang our lights and act and direct, and like
Courtney braided my hair every morning at 6 a.m. Yeah.
You were all like your own VFX, and we were all very safe. Not VFX, sorry, SFX. I don't actually know how to answer your question, because I really don't know how I did it, but I'm really glad I did.
I'm glad you bring it up, though. I think, we're on a panel, and of course you can only, get so nuanced up here in an hour without boring you guys to death. But I do think it's important to mention, I'm a big advocate of mental health in the creative arts right now, and it is something a lot of people are dealing with, and we're starting to talk about it more, which is wonderful. It's something I've dealt with for many, many years. And I think that this thing that we advocate for, which is like, just go and do all the jobs, that does have its own dark side. So I do feel like it's worth addressing. Like, self-care is very important in this thing, and you don't have to do all of these jobs. And what I didn't really understand until now, and I'm glad I do understand this now, is that, when you're making something truly independently, often you think like, well, I need somebody who's really, really experienced and has really great credits in this realm to help me. But sometimes that can actually work against you, because, again, they're ingrained into a more traditional way of making it. And I just came up, I was just like, well, it's just my brother and my girlfriend, who's now my wife. And then I met Mel when she was an AD on Your Sister's Sister with Lynn Shelton. And I was like, you're amazing, come run the company. And she was like, I don't know how to run a company. And I'm like, perfect. Like, we're going to figure it out together. So I really do encourage you guys, while we're encouraged this whole like, go do it yourself, I don't mean just yourself. I mean, you can gather just your smartest, most dedicated friends who are actually not that experienced in a lot of these roles, and it's okay. A lot of this stuff isn't rocket science. I mean, lighting, of course, some of those things are, but like having someone who's just a producer is really just someone who is absolutely dedicated to you, believes in your idea, and willing to get crafty to do it. And you don't need oodles and oodles of experience, in my opinion, for a lot of those roles.
You don't have to hold on so tight. I think that's actually how I get it done, is I've learned, and Mark's been really good at teaching me this, of like, know your battles, pick your battles, but if you want to be prolific and be healthy, you have to be flexible, and you have to know what the things you're going to fight for are. I mean, like, all three of you got a lot of no's, And then there were, each of you got your yeses, and it was the things that, they stuck hard and fast on as artists. And Mark and I would go, okay, that's your yes, because,
You mean the live fucking dog?
Mark, come on, it was a good
we
call.
fought for a dog. Our only other series regular is a dog.
Spoiler.
A real dog. And yeah, we fought to have a real dog. And Mark suggested maybe a puppet or something because we do, come from the theater.
I was like, come on, cardboard. They don't bite. It's like really good.
And there was robotic dogs at the time were coming up, and we just thought it was really important that it was a real dog. And I think, everybody here can agree that we were right. And so
yes, we can. Honestly, you were right. They pushed back really hard, and they didn't push back on a bunch of things. They picked that thing, and they kept pushing. And I was like, they're not pushing on everything. They're not. This is real. And I was like, are we going to allow a dog onto an independent set?
Mark
That's the first thing they teach you in film schools. No babies and no dogs.
No kids, yeah.
And I was like, all right, let's do it. And they did it. It was seamless. It was totally fine.
Yeah.
So I was wrong.
We actually got super lucky that our friend, as her hobby, just trains dogs really, really well. And we got Shark for a great rate. Yeah, and then also just speaking to you guys, saying you can train your friends that you love to fill in these certain roles. We brought in our good friend Chad to be the clown czar or the gag czar.
The gag czar, yeah.
And he was actually the head of the art department. Poor guy.
He was the all art whole, right?
Yeah, he was the art department.
7 departments.
With a show that is 99% visual gags.
There are so many. It outdoes Airplane in the gags. The whole show takes place on a white psych. It's the last news channel in a post-apocalyptic universe, and they are the only broadcasters. And
we're also scientists.
And they're scientists, so they claim. But yeah, that's a great point about Chad, because you knew you had his love for you, his dedication to you. He's really smart. He's really creative. He's had some experience in the theater world, but not on film. But he killed it.
Yeah, he absolutely killed it, and we're so grateful to him. And it was just also awesome to have somebody there who got our style and knew how stupid we wanted to be, and to help us think in that way, the stupid way that we love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Sam Fishman assisted him. Our friend Sam Fishman.
Yeah, and Sam's a stupid, awesome idiot too.
He spent a lot of days trying to get black cookies the right color, which does really interesting things to your digestive system. In case
Poor
you're
guy.
wondering.
Yeah, they're both Sam and Chad solid guys.
And on mine, I was able to get my sister to be producer, Rory,
wow.
and it was a period where she was sitting in the closet. I'm like, have you ever AD'd? No, good. So she's in the closet on book as script supervisor and AD that day. And if you ever watched the whole first season to the end, the last song of the show, my daughter wrote, and so I have a way to bring in my family, and all of a sudden the work becomes a thing. So I know this is titled The Future of Independent Television. I think the more, for me, I can think of the thing as opposed to this will be the thing when it's released, when it wins an Emmy, when I get the 10th season, when I go into syndication, and the future's always over there. When the thing can be the life, that for me is what I am interested in, and that's what this process was for me. I was surrounded by people I loved in a context that wasn't full of fear. And the thing, I said this on set, even if there was no cartridge in that camera, I would be doing this, and it was true, and it is true.
That's crazy. Have the cartridge. Have the cartridge.
We are going to try and save some time for audience questions. So if you have any, submit them via the app, and we'll. Oh, in fact, we have some already. Okay. Start off with. One from Travis Nicholson. When you've already made an indie pilot, what is the best way to gain access to networks to pitch your series?
It's a tough question, and I'm just going to be kind of honest. Unless you have connections or an agent or a manager, or you've gotten a premiere at a pretty big time film festival, they're not listening and they don't care, and it sucks. But it's just the nature of what our industry is. And so, I think that you should be thinking as much as you can about designing a show, not so much that's I've got enough money to make one episode, and it's like live or die on whether someone can then tap me to make more of those episodes. But if you can design a show from the front that you can make at least 6. 6 is the minimum that you kind of want. Then you have the product in your hands, which is amazing. Then you have the ability for direct distribution. You have the ability to show the data of like, you know what, I made this thing, and I made this thing for $8,000, and I was able to sell $16,000 worth of stuff based upon nobody's help. And then you have that data, and all of a sudden that starts to become quite powerful. So, I know I sound like a broken record up here, and I've been saying this for years, but whatever the question you have is about how do I get someone to then tap me and do the thing, in general, if you are not in the place where you have the attention coming to you because of the agent, because of the film festival, the answer is always, I need to get myself to the product as easily as possible, and usually that means, in my opinion, building something that can successfully be made for a very cheap budget. I'm a real big fan of creating abundance where there isn't any, and it's hard, but we're trained to think, I wrote this movie, it should be made for $1 million. How can I make it for $100,000? I wrote this movie, it should be made for $100,000. How can I make it for 50? You're constantly living in a mindset of scarcity, and it sucks. So I really try to encourage you, like, well, what is that really interesting small idea that could be made for $1,000? And if you make it for $2,000, then you have abundance, weirdly, in this small realm. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but the Creep movies are that. It was just me and Patrick in a found footage movie, and we put it in a horror genre, against our will, apparently. And that worked out really well. So
what
try
genre
to
was
design.
that for you
What's that?
initially? Like that the Creep movies.
Yeah, it was
like,
supposed
they are
to be
scary, so I'm just
emotional
curious.
It was supposed to be an awkward Craigslist encounter that ultimately had a reckoning and a breakthrough, and then this guy who's so lonely gets a friend out of it.
Oh.
But apparently I'm such a
Face for horror.
close talker and hugger and uncomfortable person that everybody was like, yeah, but it kind of feels like you're going to murder him. And I was like, well, I need to accept this about myself, so give me 6 months of therapy, and then I'll go finish the movie.
Yeah, be open to pivot.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, also I will just add to that and say, like Mark said, there's no ecosystem yet for this and for self-distributing, episodic stuff. And so we're open and we're trying, and, it's like the kids are teaching me about TikTok, and, I know people who are putting stuff out on that and releasing a whole feature in like 18 parts. So I think you could do that with episodic, and I think it's really exciting. I think that's new territory for us, and so we're going to kind of learn with all of you, I guess.
I think that's interesting because you look at Blackberry, and that was edited as a film, and then they came back and went, no, this actually works really well as a 3-part TV show, re-edited it, put more material in that they'd had to take out that I know that Matt had a real-time trimming and was really missed, and so it comes out, and then it has this additional life as a very successful TV show, while the film is still successful in its own right. So, a question here from Elaine Sevier, I think the pronunciation. Sorry if I mangled that. Are you considering distributing the shows yourself on YouTube? What would that look like, or what's stopping you?
Yeah, 100% that could be an option. And I'm not sure how much you guys are aware of these like fast channels or like these free channels that come through like Tubi or your Samsung TV or Roku. Those are really interesting right now for certain kinds of things. We're considering direct distribution. This is really new for us. Like, we premiered Penelope at Sundance. The Long Long Night premiered at Tribeca. Then Ryley Walker and The Broadcast are both premiering tonight for the first time. So we're just starting to get the lay of the land of like where these things should go. And I think that, if I'm being just totally honest, we don't know what the best approach is. I think there's a slightly, not lazy, there's this little boy in me that's like, I still want Netflix, HBO, Hulu to come in and buy my worldwide rights and have the big announcement on deadline and feel really cool, because that feels like the dream, And look, I'll take it. But there is an argument to be made of just like, well, wait a minute, why wouldn't I go direct to viewers and still maintain all of my rights, show that data to them, show how valuable it is, then increase that worldwide price. So I say this just honestly, we haven't fully thought it all through yet. We're not exactly sure what the sales landscape is going to be. It's all kind of happening real time.
But we're on a panel to tell you.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. But we're on a panel to tell you how to do it, because we know what we're doing. That's
Well,
right.
The truth is, like, nobody ever knows what they're doing, so you should just, if you don't think you know how to do something, you should just do it, because really you'll find out very quickly that really nobody does. Nobody knows.
So true.
Life
It is
just
so
doing it.
true.
Yeah.
That's our whole philosophy, is just like, we've actually like received challenges and criticism in the past for some of these movies, like Safety Not Guaranteed, or the one I love, where they're like, that should have been a huge Hollywood movie. If you had cast the right people in that could have been a $100 million grossing movie. And I'm like, maybe, or maybe it would never have gotten made. So our thing is just like, keep hitting cheap singles all day long, and then maybe sometimes, every now and then, there'll be an infield error and it'll turn into a home run. And we don't know why. You don't know what people are going to connect to or not, but if you just keep making and just let the world decide what they love and elevate, that's kind of our theory.
And I think also, the important thing is to have people around you who can soundboard off.
Yeah.
It's the classic one that Psycho almost just ended up as a TV episode. And it was his wife who said, like,
What?
this is really good. Like, you can't just cut this down. He hated the first cut, and he wanted to cut it down to just a 50-minute, do it to a half-hour TV episode. Yeah. And having people who, particularly in this environment where it is, what you're recommending is to, reach out to people around you with skills. And one of those skills can be just having good ideas, which I think is very underrated a lot of the time.
Or bad ones.
Yeah.
We love the bad ideas. Those are like, that's where the gold is.
Okay, this is from Christian to Mark and Mel. What's the most unusual way you found an artist or story you later ended up producing?
I mean, Twitter was weird for me and Natalie, for sure.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't want to tell people that, though, because then they'll start
just stalked her.
Oh,
tweeting
yeah.
at you.
Don't tweet at Mark.
yeah, yeah. No, I tweeted at you. I came after you.
That's true.
Yeah.
So that
yeah,
was-
let him initiate.
You have tweeted, I think 3 films have come out of you tweeting at somebody that I can think of.
Oh, Charlene de Guzman, which
Yeah,
we had a movie
and
called
As of
Unlovable
Yet,
here, and
Taylor
As of
Garrett.
Yet for Taylor Garrett. Yeah, a little bit of that. I think social media might be
My
the
mind was
weirdest.
blown that day, by the way. I was like sitting at home. It was like during COVID time, so I was back home for an extended period of time, and I was just like, what the fuck? Mark Duplass? I was like,
Did you film that? Because I want to see
can
that.
just like I definitely got it on film. I'll we can throw something together.
yeah.
Put a timestamp on it. But I mean, I basically did. We did just get it on film. That's kind
Yeah,
of
there you go. Yeah. Recreation. I mean, I don't, that's a weird question because I don't know if I have an answer for it. Not a weird question, but I don't have a good answer for that. Because I think what we do is we find people who are making things and doing things, like I said, and we keep our eye on that. And we honestly seek people out, I think, more than they seek us half the time. That's where a lot of our projects come from.
Yep.
Are we allowed to swear, by the way?
Why don't you find out? Let's see what happens.
Okay.
I don't think the FCC's in the room, so I think we're okay.
Cool. Fuck the FCC.
Okay, I mean, it's kind of looping around to what I asked right at the beginning here. This question is from Mitali. What would you say is the difference between making indie TV and making a web series, or is there any difference?
I don't think there is anymore.
I mean, from the process standpoint, I don't know that it's very different. I mean, I think there was a moment where we really felt like the web TV series was going to be a big thing, and I speak about that only from a way to be financially sustainable as a maker. I feel less confident that is a form that is going to be consistently financially sustainable. But that being said, I'm 47 years old, and I might not know because I don't follow TikTok that closely. But I think that if you can get yourself to the level of, if you can get yourself to the level of making something that is, 21 minutes or above, you do generally greatly increase your chance of being, economically sustainable. Because, let's face it, it's not just about making art. You got to figure out a way to make some money doing this stuff. And so that gets a little bit harder. So I would just say if you're making a web series and they're like 2 to 3 minutes a piece, you can probably increase the scope of what you're trying to do, have more cast, more locations, because you're only making 12, 15 minutes of total stuff to make a series. If you're going to try and do indie TV, where you need like 6 21-minute episodes minimum, you're talking about 120 minutes of stuff, then you got to bring your scope down a little bit to more of that creep level if you're going to truly do it micro budget, where it just, you know what, this is just a few of us making it. So it's more a question of pragmatic scope in my mind.
And I'm going to slightly rephrase this question from Elizabeth Dwyer. Mark, who are you wearing?
Who am I wearing? Yes. Go ahead.
It is, yeah. It's what I said.
So I partner with a lot of like mental health organizations. This is an organization called To Write Love on Her Arms. They offer a lot of free resources. In particular, there's no great access to online therapy right now. And there are a lot of like weird regulations where you have to take it in the state that you live. And they're working to break down those barriers, and they're working to get people free access from like high-end therapists who are willing to donate 3 to 4 hours a week for free through them. So To Write Love on Our Arms, excellent organization.
And they have good clothing.
Yeah, and they have nice hoodies, yeah.
So
anybody says mental health, you got to clap. I get it.
It's important.
The show.
I think there was applause for good hoodies, wasn't it? Really?
Okay, yeah, good. Yeah.
And I have to say, plaudits on the matching ensembles at the end there as well.
We're wearing
Yes.
fashion brand company.
Yeah, it's our friend's company, fashion brand company.
Yeah.
And also just to piggyback on the mental health thing, we wanted to let everyone know that we are in therapy.
We're in
together.
couples therapy. Yeah.
We're not a couple.
And they're not joking.
And it's helped a lot.
It's a lot.
And we love each other.
And we love each other very
Yeah.
much.
But yeah, it's a lot to make a
Are you going to cry?
6 half-hour episode TV show where you're doing all the jobs.
Yeah.
But it's worth it, I think.
Thank you, Charlene.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, shout out to our therapist, Charlene.
Are you guys going to get really centered and season 2 going to be boring?
Maybe, possibly.
All right,
No,
we'll
we'll
see.
keep the toxicity.
All right,
keep
good.
the toxicity alive.
So we've talked about these shows a lot, and obviously they're not out there completely in the wild yet. So where can people see them tonight, Mark?
Yes. So
Plug time.
8:30 p.m. at the Stateside Theater on Congress Avenue, right nearby here. We're going to show the pilots of all 4 of these shows, which are wildly different in tone and scope. And we hope you can come by, and we hope you can preach to the world about how cool independent television is. And if you like all the shows, that'd be great. If you don't like them all, maybe just talk about the ones that you do like, That'd also be pretty cool.
And if you're with a streamer looking to acquire some really good shows, find this man afterwards, I'm guessing.
Yes, exactly.
So, I think that's our time. Mark, Mel, Barrett, Courtney, Natalie, thank you so much for being here. This has just been a
Thank you
great
very
experience.
much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Thanks for
everybody.
coming.
Guys.
Duplass Brothers Productions.
Cheers.